I mostly want to talk about Cobey Sellers a little bit. So it's been OU and Texas in this one for a long time. Those have been the two main schools. I still think that the decision will come down to those two schools, but A&M is really making a push. I wouldn't necessarily classify them where I classify Texas and OU, but A&M is making like a very real push. And I think about a week from now, it won't be a top two. It'll be probably a top three or something like that. He's not wanting to commit until the end of July. His father's birthday's in July, and Horns 24/7 actually broke that was his planned date last summer. Yeah. And look, with Texas taking 5 defensive backs in 2024, they have some margin for error, especially at corner, considering that 4 of those 5 guys are more true corners than safety. Phil Smead's the only true safety, in my opinion. They have some margin for error at corner because they're not getting Devin Sanchez. He's not decommitting from Ohio State. That's like that ship has sailed.
Right.
So the in-state guys that are really important are Cobey Sellers, Dorian Blew, Cortland Guillory. Those are, Cortland Guillory and Cobey Sellers are strictly corners. Dorian Blew's kind of your jumbo corner, kind of this year's version of Kobe Black, if you want a lazy comp, where he could end up being a safety. He could be a corner, probably more of a corner more than anything. And then another guy they like a lot is Cade Phillips from Hightower. He could be either corner or safety. I believe we have him listed as a corner right now, but that kid can end up playing safety in college as well. The other in-state safeties are Sale Reyes, who actually got a story up on our site yesterday, and then Demetrius Brisbane, who we have ranked as an athlete, actually committed to Baylor right now. Baylor flipped him from SMU. Whenever he flipped from SMU to Baylor, if that kid called Texas and wanted to commit, they would have let him. As far as that stands right now, not entirely sure, but I do know there's a little bit of communication that still goes on. He's also best friends with Ricky Stewart, Tyler Chapel Hill's running back that we have crystal ball to Texas. So maybe I don't want to say if Texas gets desperate enough, but maybe down the road, if the dominoes don't fall like they like, they could turn back to Demetrius Brisbane. So that being said, the DB group in state it's pretty weak. It's pretty damn weak. And with A&M actually having I don't know how to describe this. I guess the easiest way, by this time last year, a lot of kids were kind of done with A&M. Not that they had fully stopped considering them, but they saw that Jimbo was getting fired and that staff was getting canned in the next year or two. Right. So a lot of kids weren't even giving him the time of the day. That's not the same anymore. So that being said, like there's more.
You know what it is, Jordan? You know what it is? It's a thing. I'll borrow a Tom Herman term. It's the new car smell. You got to take advantage of it, man. Nobody. Tom didn't say this, but I'll borrow from my man Rod Babers. Rod's a big fan of throwing a play action pass or throwing it early in the game. You know why? Because your run game doesn't suck yet. Nobody knows your run game sucks. So run some play action early. Try to take some deep shots. Nobody knows you suck as a coach yet. So go ahead and maximize this window, maximize the honeymoon period while you got it.
Yeah. A&M, it's going to be tough, especially because most of Texas's defensive back targets are in the Houston area of the cycle. And obviously, A&M's much closer to Houston than Austin. Sorry, I got the hiccups. But of those guys I mentioned, the one I feel most confident about ending up at Texas is Cortland Guillory, hands down. Already have a crystal ball in for him. And one thing that I really enjoy every time I talk to Cortland is I always ask him, or I always ask kids I interview him after I've asked them all my questions, what else stands out about Texas? Because usually it's, it's a school I grew up watching. They've been good since I was a kid. It's a flagship school. They'll say things that don't involve their relationship with the coach or the campus, right? Yeah. Every time I ask Cortland that, he says, and again, you can read these quotes. They're published. He says almost verbatim, like, well, I'm from the state of Texas, and this is the biggest school in the state of Texas, so why wouldn't I want to go there? Yeah. And then basically kind of sneak dissing A&M, and I've written like 3 articles where he's given me quotes about that. And then I always wrap it up. What are some other schools standing out? And like A&M's the last school mentioned every time. So I think it's kind of funny whenever kids are that blunt and straightforward. But for Cortland, if it isn't Texas, it's most likely going to be OU. Outside of the Sooners, I really don't see a threat to Texas at this point.
Hey, real quick, Dorian Blew is a kid who's really interesting. A move-in kid. I'm just not as familiar with him because he kind of came up on the radar for 2025 guys, came up on the radar a little bit late. Where are things at with him?
Yeah, so Dorian Blew is actually an awesome prospect, like almost made in a lab type of kid. So his mother is in the Ohio State track and or Athletics Hall of Fame for her track and field career. She still owns like over 10 Big Ten records. Like his mom was a demon on the track. His dad and his mom, I believe, is from the state of Ohio, but she's from the Midwest. I know that, and then went to Ohio State. His dad is from Houston and went to Klein Forest for high school, and then went to LSU, ran track at LSU, ended up running in the Olympics as well while at LSU or after his LSU career. So like this kid legitimately was basically made in a lab. He also has great track times, as everyone assumes. And the reason he's kind of late to everyone's radar, or late to most people's radars of all Texas recruiting, is because he didn't move down to Texas until midway through this past fall. Yeah. Like he moved down to Texas in the middle of the high school football season, was eligible to play because he came from out of state. He was at, I believe the high school he was at was Northmont in Ohio. But up until he moved to Texas, his recruitment was all Ohio State. I believe he visited Ohio State unofficially, like legitimately over 8 times, because where he's living in Ohio was less than an hour and a half from Columbus. So every home game he was at this past fall pretty much, and the year before, and he'd gone to all the recruiting events as well. And I mean, this is a top 50 prospect. If you're showing interest in Ohio State, they're going to show a lot of interest back in you as well. So Ohio State was the runaway leader for a super, super long time. He moved to Texas, I believe it was October. In December, I believe he announced his commitment date. It was something like January 21st or January 24th. A ton of crystal balls went in for Ohio State because that was really the only school of interest, even at that time. And then he ended up pushing it back. He ended up pushing his date back. There's a lot of assumption on why that is. He said he wanted to take his time. On the other end, Ohio State landed Devin Sanchez, number 1 corner, and Naeem Offord, who's also a 5-star defensive back. And Ohio State, I bet a lot of money on them landing Fahim Delane, who's I believe our number 1 ranked safety. That's a 5-star safety out of Maryland. So I think there's definitely maybe some truth to the assumptions, and that, there's just so much talent there. He kind of wanted a place where, he could get on the field earlier. I think that's part of it. I also just think now that he's moved to Houston, he was living with his mom prior to moving to Houston. Now he's living with his dad, but his mom has also made the move down to Texas as well. So now that the whole family's in Texas, I think a lot of the recruitment just changed because, the regional schools down here are a lot different than the regional schools up there. And also just the way things are done is much, much different. And I'm not just talking recruiting. I'm talking top to bottom, the way these programs are run and the way they recruit these kids.
Yeah. Here's a fun fact about Dorian Blew's dad, Derek. You mentioned he's a track star. He actually has an Olympic bronze medal from the Open 400 at the Athens Games in 2004, and won a gold medal on the 4x4, the mile relay team, with a couple of Baylor greats, Jeremy Warner and Darrell Williamson. He was on that mile relay team. So,
So
Derek Blew, LSU guy from Houston, went to Klein Collins.
If you're interested in how the hell Dorian Blew ended up at Conroe, it's because his dad is the track coach there, and I believe is also an assistant football coach. And then his dad, I didn't even know it existed till I was doing some research when he first moved down here. But his dad also owns and operates like a track training facility in Spring outside of Houston. So definitely a track family. It's in their blood. Obviously, football is the main thing for him, but track is also really important. He's had a busy offseason at meets. As far as
I think if you win an Olympic gold medal in track, aren't you obligated to open up a track training facility somewhere?
Yeah, for sure.
Because I know, like, you're actually here in San Marcos, Charles Austin was a Olympic gold medalist in the high jump, I think in '96, I think in the Atlanta Olympics. I don't know if it's still open, but Charles Austin for a long time had a training facility here. I'm like, Michael Johnson's got Michael Johnson Performance in Dallas. Like, dude, every Olympic gold medalist have I guess you're obligated to. I don't know if it's a sponsorship deal or what, but it seems like you win an Olympic gold medal. That's the way you can make money the rest of your life. Open a training facility.
Yeah. So I guess to continue with Dorian Blew, it was Ohio State pretty much up until he decided to push his date back. After that happened, it's kind of been process of filling the other schools out because Ohio State was really the only school he was visiting up until he moved down here. Now that he moved down here, he took visits to LSU, USC, A&M, Texas, and the main schools right now. Actually, I've been kind of holding on reporting this. Not really for any specific reason, just because I knew he was coming on April 6th, and I was hoping to package something after the visit. But the top two schools for him right now, according to a source I really trust, is USC and Texas. And the source didn't say that LSU and A&M are necessarily out of the race, but that those are kind of the only two schools receiving consideration at this point. Now, Blew, his intention is to commit in the summer, sometime before his senior year. So there's a lot of things that could change between now and then, but it's definitely USC and Texas setting the pace. And if I had a gun to my head, asked me to pick, I'd 100% pick USC. He was there, not this weekend, but the past weekend, part of the group of visitors that was there whenever USC landed like 8 silent commitments, and now like 6 of those guys have gone public. A really, really good recruiting weekend out in L.A. There's some people that believe Blew might have given a silent commitment to USC. Well, I haven't necessarily confirmed that. I do know, like, there might not be a better school in the country getting silent commitments on visits than USC. Like, I'm dead ass serious. They did do a phenomenal job with the presentations of everything out there. It's in Los Angeles, palm trees, Lincoln Riley's house in the hills. Like, they do the full 9 yards, and they do a great job. And a lot of kids will silently commit. In fact, Anthony Smith was silently committed to USC for about a week. Draylon Miller.
Can I just tell you that there's nothing that, of all the terms in our business, there's nothing to me more cringeworthy than the silent commitment.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we got it. How much silence do we have? Well, if we're all yapping about it, is it really a silent commit?
Yeah. But so with Dorian, though, it's USC and Texas right now setting the pace for him. Again, if you asked me to pick, I'd lean USC just because he was there last weekend. And even if they didn't get a commitment, I know they made a great impression on him. So now it's Texas' turn, I guess, return the Blew. He's actually going to be in town April 6th. We didn't include him in our story the other day just because we were kind of – originally it was confirmed he'd be there about a month ago that he had scheduled that April 6th trip. And then when we checked in with our people, there was some miscommunication. But we're expecting him in town this Saturday. And at some point in the next month or two, I want to get out to Conroe to see him. And then it's funny with his recruitment, him and his family, they've done a really good job of not letting things get out. Obviously, the USC and Texas thing, like I have sources. I work pretty hard to get that info. But him and his circle, they're doing everything they can to keep a tight lid on it. And even I've been told from other reporters, like, there might be some speculation he's trying to throw people off during interviews and stuff like that. So going to be a really intriguing recruitment to track. This is the top-rated defensive back in Texas that's still uncommitted. Second-rated DB in Texas behind Devin Sanchez. So Texas is going to recruit him through the whistle.